Hey everybody, I'm the Drink Pro. Today we've got the Bardstown Discovery Series number 5. What's up everybody, Kyle the Drink Pro here with you yet again. Thank you as always for joining. Please click that subscribe button, click the bell for notifications, keep tuning into the channel. It's the only way I can keep doing these things is with your support. Speaking of your support, if you are a regular viewer of the live streams, then you know a man by the name of Akeem the Dream. And Akeem has come through today because I have samples of Discovery from Bardstown Bourbon Company, their series number 4 and number 5. So we're gonna do a side-by-side of those today. Thank you so much, Akeem. Now, I had been really excited to be the first one on YouTube to get those videos up, and lo and behold, right before I filmed this, 2 other channels issued their videos for a review of this whiskey. I'm not gonna watch those videos. I'm not gonna let them influence me. If you wanna watch them, that's up to you, but I hope that you will take my opinion for what it's worth, which I call myself the Drink Pro, but you gotta watch my videos and find out if you believe me or not. But back to Bardstown Bourbon Company. They are a relatively young player in the wide world of whiskey, specifically in bourbon. Obviously, they're located in Bardstown, but they have been doing sort of 2 main series in their initial run. They do a lot of limited releases and special editions, but their baseline is essentially a Fusion series and a Discovery series. These 2 series both use source whiskey, but in very different ways. The Fusion series actually sort of blends together sourced whiskey and their own products. I think it will eventually become 100% their own products, but I also don't think it's there yet. Nonetheless, there's great disclosure on the Bardstown Bourbon Company website. So if you're curious about what is in a pour, it will tell you, even if it's not their own distillate. The Discovery series is actually doing something totally different. It's sort of highlighting the blending ability of Bardstown and their master blenders. This means that they're sourcing whiskey from local distilleries or not so local distilleries, as Bardstown Series 5 happens to show you, and trying to make the best profile that they can. Up until this point, and I'm sure someone in the comments will correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not aware of any whiskey in the Discovery series from Bardstown that is being sourced from Tennessee until Series 5. Now, like I said, Bardstown is great with disclosure, so that's how I knew that the Tennessee whiskey was in the Batch 5. And as you can see right here, Batch 4 varies meaningfully from Batch 5. The 2 big things that stand out to me, number 1 is obviously the inclusion of the 17-year-old Tennessee sourced whiskey, but also the youth of 2 of the whiskeys in this blend. A full 44% of the Series 5 Discovery is 7 years or younger. That's very young if you compare it to the 4, where the youngest whiskey was only 8% of a 10-year-old. Now, I will say, I think I prefer younger bourbons more than a lot of other channels out there. I'm not a big oak head, so I have a lot of high hopes for this pour. I'm also not a big anti-Dickel person. If you know, the George Dickel whiskey often has this sort of minerality, this Flintstone vitamin quality that people really, really don't like. I've never really been offended by that flavor, even though it's not my preference, so I'm expecting it to be pretty nice in a blend, where you can get some of that really nice citrus, sweet, almost orangey quality that can come from that, a nice candy fruit without that minerality taking over. But enough chatter, let's get into the whiskeys. Now, I've got the Series 5 I'm pouring right here, and I still got some glasses. Email me at thedrinkpro@gmail.com to get your hands on some of these glasses. But I've just now poured the Series 5 from the Discovery. I've also got in front of me the Series 4 and the Series 1 just as reference points. I'm gonna do a direct side-by-side of the 4 and 5, maybe sprinkle in the 1 later. Now, I don't have the proof notes in front of me right now. I'll just put them over here on the side later, but it does smell like they're pretty comparable in proof. And I am gonna start with the 5 as well. I'll go sort of in reverse order because the 5 is the star of the show. It's the newest release. It's the one I'm the most curious about. There's almost like a strawberry jello or a grape Kool-Aid vibe. There's definitely that artificial fruitiness. And I will also say I can smell the youth on this, even without the disclosure. You get this sort of bright, almost citrusy grain quality. I am a little surprised by how much of that citrus is coming out and how bright this is and how young this smells. If you gun to my head, told me how old I thought this whiskey was, I'd say like 9 or 10 years old. And a full quarter of it's 17-year-old Tennessee source whiskey, probably Dickel if I had to guess, but you can't be certain. And then there's another big percentage of it that is 13-year-old Kentucky bourbon. So over half of it is 13, 17-year-old whiskey. I'm surprised it smells this young. There is sort of a nice, subtle nuttiness to this. Maybe like a peanut brittle vibe, because I get this sweet, creamy caramel. You can smell a little bit of the char as well. I think that's where that age is coming in the most. Is it doesn't really smell like oak, but it actually kind of smells like charred wood, almost charcoal. But it's pretty subtle. It's pretty behind that citrus brightness and those nice artificial fruit notes. I actually really get like a chocolate covered cherries with this. And the more I keep smelling it, the chocolate becomes a sort of dry, powdery cocoa, almost blending into like an older oak smell. The oak is becoming more and more prominent and becoming more and more a fundamental part of the nose as this opens up. The grain is prominent on this nose still as well. It's kind of this fun mix of grain and that deep, rich, chocolatey oakiness. I'm guessing that's why they blended them. You know, that's why you blend a 7-year and a 17-year. But the fact that I can tease out those notes also is a little concerning before tasting it, because typically in a blend, I want those to kind of mesh together and create this symphony of sound. If they're separate, it's almost like two different solo notes that are being played at different times and not really a blend per se. All right, let's go ahead and taste this. Oh yeah, that oakiness really comes through. There's a little bit of upfront sweetness, maybe like a slight caramel, but very quickly it moves into bitter oak and black pepper. And that bitterness kind of lingers for me, actually. I don't get any of the Dickel minerality, but I also don't get much of the fruitiness. Like on the nose, I can smell that nice fruitiness that I come to associate with Dickel, at least on the nose. But on the palate, there's just nothing. You just get the oak from the 17-year and probably that 13-year-old bourbon too. Yeah, when I really slosh it around, I can get a hint of sort of lemon zest and maybe like an orange up front, but then a very quick transition back into like walnuts, bitter dark chocolate, charred wood, black pepper, and a little bit of like chili powder on the tongue to finish. It gets a little spicy. At least initially, I'm not impressed, especially at, I think it's $130 MSRP. Let's compare it to the 4. Maybe it's just my palate right now. That has happened before on this channel. And by the way, the Big Boy E.H. Taylor live stream is this Thursday, July 1st at 8:30 p.m. I'm gonna be drinking some real hitters. I've got some amazing E.H. Taylor special, super limited releases. Definitely check that out. Oh yeah, holy shit. Going back to the 4-year, it's like night and day. This one to me is a lot less citrusy, but it has a ton more caramel and the berries become more prominent. You lose a little bit of the citrus fruit and you get more of the berry sweetness, which is sort of something I really look for. Tasting the 4, it's oakier than I probably would go to naturally. I love a gentle, sweet whiskey. This is not that. But there's not nearly as much bitterness. It's still got this sweetness, it's still got this nuttiness. I mean, I think that Bardstown has a particular profile that they tend to go for, and I tend to like it, but it's not my like #1 top tier preference, which is why I don't own a lot of the Discovery series, because at 130, I better really freaking like it. Yeah, the number 4 is solid. It's sweet. It's a sweet oak as opposed to that drying oak. Definitely still has that big pepper finish, black pepper. A lot of tingling on the tongue. It's just a lot more lively, I think. I think the Series 4 is much livelier than the Series 5. The Series 5 is almost dead on the palate, and this thing keeps evolving. After taking a sip, the black pepper's coming in waves on the finish of Discovery 4. Let's go back to the 5 real quick. Yeah, after tasting that 4 and letting it sit for a while, coming back to the 5, it just feels like it fell flat. It's a little nuttier, definitely drier, but it just falls flat. There it was. There it was. I finally got a taste of that Dickel fruity minerality, but it's very buried. I had to let that sit for a while and then take the last tiny sip out of the glass. So I think if you poured this in a glass and let it sit there for 20 or 30 minutes, then you might get some of that classic Dickel profile, which some people will like, some people will not, but it's definitely not the star of the show. The oak is. I will say the more I keep comparing 4 and 5, although the 4 is a lot more lively and exciting, it's sort of like a wild bronco. And by that I mean, it really takes you on a journey, it jostles you, it feels very aggressive. And the 5 doesn't really do that. The 5 just sneaks up on you on the finish. It's almost like a ghost pepper. It's nice and soft and creamy. It's kind of bitter. It's kind of bitter and very oaky for me. But then the finish, it just heats up more and more and more, hotter, hotter, hotter. It's got a real legitimate ghost pepper experience, and maybe even flavor. If you've ever eaten ghost peppers before, there's a sort of bitterness, almost a chemically bitterness that comes with a ghost pepper. So maybe that's the note. It's not really oaky bitterness, it's peppery bitterness. Just as a sort of gut check, I'm gonna go to the Discovery 1. And I'll tell you right now, looking at the notes, the Discovery 1 has the 5-year Kentucky in it, but most of the whiskey is between 10 and 15 years. Now the nose on Discovery 1 is way more like fruity ethanol, which I'm not really a fan of. I like the fruit, not the ethanol. Oh, yeah, Discovery 1 is way out of balance for me compared to the Discovery 4 and 5 for that matter. I think they have improved with time. On the whole, the Series 5 isn't bad. It's just not what I expect from the Bardstown line of Discovery whiskeys. The Discovery tend to take you on a bit of a journey. They give you a lot of different things going on that kind of go through these different phases in the flavor. I think the 4 really exemplifies that by giving you this pepperiness in waves, this sweetness, this burn. It really takes you on a roller coaster ride. But the 5 is a lot more gentle, it's a lot more subtle and nuanced, but it also kind of falls flat for me. I feel like I came into it expecting a journey, didn't really get it, and got a little bit more bitterness than I actually tend to enjoy. The 5 doesn't really do what I want it to do. I can see somebody who likes a mild-tempered, rather oaky bourbon to really lean into that Series 5. If you don't want to be jostled, but you like a really oaky profile, which is kind of hard to find, honestly, both of those worlds, maybe the Bardstown Series 5 Discovery is perfect for you. For me, at 130, I think I'll save my money. You all keep drinking like professionals. I'm gonna keep sipping this whiskey. Cheers.